Good day and welcome to Westchester Talk Radio, westchestertalkradio.com. I'm John Marino, and we are produced by Sharc Creative. You see that big shark with a C, not a K, creative logo on the wall in orange and blue behind me. We are made possible by our good friends at places like Entergy, the Indian Point Energy Center, supporting our communities right through April of 2021. Lipolis Electric, don't be left in the dark. You get Lipolis, and by Hightower Westchester. At Hightower, they manage your wealth to a fiduciary standard. We are joined here on the beat in Westchester by Steve Greenberg. Steve Greenberg is pollster at the Siena Research Institute, Siena College in upstate New York, outside Albany. Steve Greenberg, thank you for joining us again here on Westchester Talk Radio. I know it's a very busy time of year for you as we are here into the month of October now, a month before Election Day 2020. And this, of course, is going to be a landmark election for the direction of our country. First of all, one of the biggest issues seems to be in every state around the country right now, and especially here in New York, how we are balloting in New York. You ran a poll at Siena just a few days ago about absentee and mail-in ballots in the state of New York. What do New Yorkers think about this?
Sure. Well, first, great to be with you again, John, and all the folks in Westchester. What Siena asked voters was, how are you planning on voting this year? Are you going to vote in person on Election Day? Are you going to vote in person early during early voting? Or are you going to vote by mail? And what New Yorkers told us was that 54%, a majority, are planning on voting in person on Election Day. Another 17% say they're going to vote in person, but early. So you get a total of about 70% of New Yorkers who say they're going to vote in person. Another 16% say they're planning on voting by mail. And 13%, well, they haven't decided yet. There's still 29 days to go, so they haven't figured out yet how they plan on voting.
Are you surprised by these numbers? I think I am, with New York being a very blue Democratic state. And the feeling amongst the Democrats I know seems to be that let's play it safe, let's do it from home. Whereas with Republicans, you have so many Republicans that seem like they want to go to the polls. So I'm shocked by those numbers.
Well, it is a little bit different than we're seeing in some of the other states. So let me break it down for you. Among Democrats, 42% say they're going to vote in person on Election Day. Another 22% say they're going to vote in person early, so almost two-thirds, while 19% say they're going to vote by mail. Among Republicans, 72%, more than two-thirds, say they're going to vote in person on Election Day, with another 9%. So about 80% of Republicans plan on voting in person, with 11% voting by mail. So you have about 19% of Democrats, 1 out of every 5 say they're going to plan on voting by mail, whereas among Republicans, it's 11%.
Does this indicate to you that New Yorkers are happy and satisfied with this absentee system?
Well, look, many New Yorkers have voted absentee. We have had absentee balloting for as long as I've been alive. Now, in New York, you don't have absentee ballot with no excuse. You have to have an excuse, be traveling, be sick, etc. Now, this year, the governor signed an executive order, which has the force of law, which says that anybody could use coronavirus as a reason for wanting to get an absentee ballot filling out an absentee ballot application and saying coronavirus was acceptable. What's new in New York, or relatively New York, is early voting. That's only started a couple of years ago. This is the first presidential election where we will have early voting. So in every county, there are a number of polling locations that will open for about, I think it's 9 or 10 days prior to Election Day, be open every day so voters can go in with the assumption that it makes it easier for people to vote, those who can't vote on Election Day. But also this year with coronavirus, we'll spread out the people so that, I think a lot of people in New York, given the low rate we have had for the last several months, certainly we were the earliest hotspot. But over the last several months, New York has been doing better on the coronavirus. Restaurants are largely open. Stores are largely open. Certainly, life is not back to normal as we knew it. But people are out and about. And I think with the early voting, I think a lot of voters may feel maybe it's safer to vote that way, and therefore they're not as rushing to get absentees. But we'll also see what those people who hadn't decided early on, what they wind up doing.
Talk about early voting and some places being open to be able to go do that. How do you find out if your location is open where you normally vote, or if you have to go someplace else to do it?
Well, it probably will not be where you normally vote, because there's only going to be a handful of places per county. So I think you can go to your county board of elections website. You can certainly go to the state board of elections website. I know there are good government groups that have websites and 800 numbers that people can log on to or call to find out where early voting does exist. I mean, from my perspective, the only thing I would urge everybody who's watching or listening to us today, vote. Whether it's by mail, whether it's early voting, or on election day, just vote.
And speaking of those votes for the presidential election in New York State, Donald Trump a few weeks ago said, "I'd like to win my home state." I don't think that's possible. What do the numbers show?
That is exactly right, John. In fact, let me give you the exact quote that the president said. He said, "We're putting New York in play. We're going to play it very strong and very hard, and we're going to try to win New York." Well, I think as hard as he may try, he's not likely to be successful. We should caveat this so people understand. New York is a very blue state. There are more than twice as many Democrats as Republicans in New York. No Republican has carried New York in a presidential election since Ronald Reagan's reelection back in 1984. So where do we stand right now? Right now, Joe Biden has a 32-point lead over Donald Trump. 61% of New York voters say they're with Joe Biden. 29% say they're with Donald Trump. Not surprisingly, 87% of Democrats say they're voting for Biden. He's got a lead, not a huge lead, but a lead, 49 to 35% among independent voters. Of course, Trump is carrying Republicans, but it's only, and I put that in quotes, it's only by a 67 to 27% margin. So what that says is more than a quarter of New York Republicans are voting for the Democrat, Joe Biden, and not the former New Yorker and current Floridian Republican, President Trump.
Any idea why this is the case?
Well, it's very different than what we've seen. As you know, John, Siena has partnered with the New York Times, and we've been doing polls in all the various battleground states. And we've not seen a number like 27% of Republicans voting for Biden in any of those states. In most of those states, Democrats and Republicans look like mirror images of each other. Democrats will be 92-4 for Biden, and Republicans will be 93-3 for Trump. What we see in New York is that 27%, but we also look at other Trump measures. Do you have a favorable or unfavorable view of Donald Trump? About a third of Republicans view him unfavorably. Positive or negative job performance rating. How's he doing as president? A third about of Republicans give him a negative job performance rating. And on COVID, do you approve or disapprove of the job that the president is doing to address the coronavirus pandemic? 38% of Republicans disapprove of the job he's doing. So New York Republicans do not look like Republicans in battleground states.
Could it be because New Yorkers know him best?
New Yorkers certainly do. Look, Donald Trump has never been popular in New York. We polled on him back in the early 2010s when he was thinking about running for governor, or at least making noise about running for governor. Donald Trump has never been popular in his home state. But let's also put this in perspective. I said Biden right now is at 61 to 29. The last 5 presidential candidates in New York, working backwards, Clinton, Obama, Kerry, Gore, all 5 of them got between 58 and 63% of the vote in New York. So that has become the New York norm. By the way, the first President Clinton, who won in 92 and 96, won easily in New York, but didn't get those kind of numbers because both of those were three-way races. Your viewers may recall Ross Perot.
Yeah. Long time ago, 30 years ago, went by fast, but that was a big name nationally and obviously here in New York at that time, too, in that presidential election back in the early 90s. Now, last week we had a presidential debate between Joe Biden and Donald Trump. I know you ran some numbers after that debate. How did things look for both Biden and Trump?
Well, we haven't looked at New York since the poll that you and I have been talking about New York voters was finished prior to the debate. So it doesn't really include that. But subsequent to the debate, New York Times, Siena did polls in Florida and in Pennsylvania and in Arizona. We didn't ask about it in Arizona, but in Florida and Pennsylvania, we asked, had you watched the debate? And in both states, more than 3/4 of voters say they did. Who did better? Who do you think won? In both states, a plurality of voters thought that Biden had won. Biden did better by about 12 to 15 points in each of those states than Trump, although a fair number thought that neither one won or were undecided about that. But what's really interesting is that in both of those cases, that was a second poll within the last few weeks in that state. Neither state really moved. Pennsylvania, we had done right before the debate, and we had Biden with a 9-point lead. We did it again right after the debate. Voters said that they thought, as I say, a plurality of voters said that they thought Biden had won. Biden had a better favorability rating than Trump, yet the gap closed slightly to 7 points. So Biden had a 7-point lead after the debate.
And these are all key swing states, obviously, which is not good news for the president and his reelection bid.
No, that's exactly right. And in fact, we came out today with another new poll, as I mentioned, in Arizona. And what we see there is that Biden has an 8-point lead, 49 to 41. It was back in mid-September, 49 to 40.
Do you think the president contracting COVID and his conduct during this, never mind the debate and all the talk about the conduct of both sides during the debate, the president contracting COVID, maybe he walked around with it for a day or so before he actually went to the hospital, may have gone to a fundraiser or two in Minnesota, over at Bedminster, the golf club in Jersey, and then getting into his SUV on Sunday and going for a ride to say hi to his supporters in a hermetically sealed SUV with Secret Service agents who were exposed, obviously, to the president and the coronavirus. What kind of an effect do you think this might have on the numbers, or is this still TBD, to be determined?
Well, it's, look, voters are taking in new information, forget every day, every hour, every minute these days. It was announced earlier today that the president tweeted that he is going to be going back to the White House this evening. So this is going to be an evolving story, no question, and people are going to make judgments about that SUV ride, about whether they've been honest in terms of the whole timeline and the president's health, and have they been doing the contact tracing around that what appears to be that super spreader event, the nomination about 9 days ago now of Judge Barrett to be the Supreme Court justice. But the one thing that is clear, and that certainly works to the president's detriment and to Biden and the Democrats' advantage, is that the president has not wanted to talk about coronavirus. He has made it clear over the last weeks and months, he wants to talk about law and order. He wants to talk about jobs and the economy. He wants to talk about what he's done in the Middle East. He wants to talk about anything and everything other than coronavirus, because he knows all the polling has shown that on that issue, that's one of the issues where Biden really beats Trump badly. And what the president has ensured is that at least for this week, if not beyond, the campaign is going to be focused on coronavirus. And that certainly is not something that the president was looking to happen.
And in these final weeks before the election, you'll be running polls in all the different states, 3 at a time, I guess, across the country.
we will be constantly polling between now and, probably the Saturday or Sunday before Election Day in a dozen, maybe more states.
That means you don't get to sleep until about November 15th, right?
Give or take.
Give or take, right? A day or a month or two, right? Andrew Cuomo, his latest numbers in the state of New York, the governor.
Governor slipped a little bit since the last time we were in the field in New York, which was back at the end of June, but he still has very strong numbers. Right now, 59% of New Yorkers say they view Cuomo favorably. 33% say they view him unfavorably. Down a little. Back in June, it was 65 favorable, 31 unfavorable. Where did he lose ground? All with Republicans. It's interesting, John. We were just talking about how Donald Trump had lost ground, wasn't doing as good with New York Republicans as he was doing with Republicans elsewhere. Well, Republicans took it out on Donald Trump this month, but they also took it out on Andrew Cuomo. Right now, 64% of Republicans view Cuomo unfavorably. Only 29% view him favorably. Back in June, it was break even, 46 favorable, 43 unfavorable. But when it comes to his handling of the pandemic, New Yorkers still, give the governor very high marks. 73% approve, 24% disapprove. Back in June, it was 76 to 21, very little difference. And even Republicans on the issue of coronavirus are break even with the governor. 46% approve of the job that he's doing on coronavirus, 48% disapprove.
So if Andrew Cuomo decides he wants to run for another term for governor, he seems to be in pretty good shape.
At the moment, and again, we have to caution that, news comes fast and furious. We won't be in the gubernatorial election cycle until, Wednesday, November 4th, but we'll certainly see what the future will bring in terms of Andrew Cuomo and New York politics.
And Donald Trump and Joe Biden, too. I think much will happen between now and your next poll, Steve, right before Election Day. You are running the polls, obviously, across the country throughout the month, but your next New York poll, I guess, comes at the end of the month, early November.
We hope to squeeze one more in New York before the end. The question is, will we have enough bandwidth given all the swing battleground states? But we'll see. That's certainly our hope.
Steve Greenberg, Siena Research Institute, Pollster, Siena College, just outside Albany. We thank you as always, and let's talk again in a few weeks, Steve. Thank you.
Sounds good, John. Thank you.
All right, Steve Greenberg here on Westchester Talk Radio, westchestertalkradio.com, produced by Sharc Creative. That's Sharc with a C, not a K, and made possible by our good friends at places like Entergy, the Indian Point Energy Center. They are supporting our communities through April of 2021. White Plains Hospital, our thanks to all of our heroes at White Plains Hospital and all the healthcare facilities around our tri-state area during this 2020 COVID-19 pandemic. Wartburg Healthcare and Rehabilitation in Mount Vernon, Park Sterling Realty in Bronxville, and Mike Golabriola Landscape Design and Construction in Armonk. We thank you one and all. I'm John Marino. We are Westchester Talk Radio, westchestertalkradio.com. Catch all of our Westchester, Putnam, Dutchess, and Fairfield County Talk Radio programming on our YouTube channel, Sharc Creative YouTube.